Hello and welcome back to Thunderstruck, the official podcast counting all of the times any member of AC/DC has been struck by lightning. So far, we still remain at 0. And it is episode 51. I'm getting a lot of DMs of people saying, hey man, in every single episode you drop really cool, interesting new facts I'd never heard about AC/DC. You seem like you're just a huge fan of them. I think you could have a whole podcast just about them and specialize episodes with different eras and different members of the group and origin stories and where they are now. And, you could go on forever. That band has a really long history. I don't think you need to pigeonhole yourself into this lightning idea. And, I tell them the same thing every time. I tell them that my grandpa told me, when a good idea hits you, it strikes like lightning. And when I had the Thunderstruck idea, I knew that was the right decision. And so one day, one of them will get struck by lightning, and that will be the day that my podcast will become the most famous podcast in the world for at least 36 hours. And after that, I will find a new goal. But I'm doing this podcast kind of like a Super Bowl, where it's not really about a lot of success. It's just about enough to get a big win. But anyway, it's Friday, December 8th. You should be listening to this tomorrow on Saturday, December 9th. I hope the skies are sunny. If you are not, I'm sorry. I fucked up. You're listening to this on another day, but chances are this should be out at the right time. I don't really need to mention that. I guess that shows a lot of insecurity in the cast. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel, great about this whole operation. Decided to leave the AC on today. Gonna try and make sure that the noise reducer will do the job and you won't hear that. But if you're hearing it, remember, take a look at, if you're ever listening to this podcast and you think this isn't good, just look at the video of it. If you're able to access the video, look at the video of it, and then it'll kind of ground you. And you'll be like, okay, that's where he's coming from. I get it. That's why it is the way it is. I won't complain anymore. You know what I mean? I show the video without any backdrop or anything. I just show where I record it. Not really to even have a video element of the podcast, but to give people a understandable reason as to why it's not the best. Because if you just listen to it, you'd be like, what's up with this guy? And then if you see where I live, you'd be like, it makes total sense that this is the product being released from this setting. Why is there no pictures on the walls? Yes, I do have a moving box of pictures that is open that I haven't touched for like 6 months, and it's just sort of, you know what I mean, when you have something that's a temporary storage that just becomes part of the apartment. That's not good. But fuck it, haters are gonna hate. Still the greatest podcast in the US, still the most honest podcast in the US, except that one episode I had to delete because I am a white guy in a podcast, and I think that's fine. I think it's a silly stereotype. There are a lot of funny guys with podcasts, but sometimes you do record an episode and you watch it and you go, okay, this is what they're talking about, though. What I just did is what the liberals of TikTok are complaining about with white guy podcasts, and I see that, and I will record a new episode. I won't continue releasing things like that. So anyway, I don't know. I hope everybody's watched the Squid Game reality TV show. I don't watch reality TV shows. I'm one of the guys that's prone to thinking that stuff is stupid and probably that I'm better than it, I guess. But then almost every time I watch a reality show, I'm really locked in. This is, if you don't know what it is, it's based off the very popular Netflix show Squid Game, which was about people who are accepted into a game where they have to play children's games, but if they lose, they die, and if they win, they get like a lifetime amount of money. So they made a real version of that show, except boo-hoo, the people don't die. They just get kicked off. But they do have to pretend to die, which is funny because like they keep these things on connected to their chests that because in the show, when they lose the game, the guards shoot them in the face, and it's pretty fucked up. In real life, they can't do that. I don't know why, but they can't. So they just have a thing on their chest that explodes, and then they all have to pretend to die. And it's funny because you can tell some guys, they cut away really quick, where you can tell right after he like closes his eyes while standing and then probably open them, was like, I'm not doing it, you know? I wasn't going to watch it until a very funny friend of mine asked if I'd watched it. And I was so surprised that he, of all people, would ask me. And I was like, no, why would I ever watch that? And he was like, it's hilarious. And I was like, okay, you know, that was all I needed. I watched it. I think the true magic of the show is that, similar to the original scripted show, the competition starts off with 456 people. So in real life, they had to cast 456 people, many of them from all across the world, mostly America and British, but there's like a couple Indian guys hanging out, which I guess statistically would add up. There'd have to be a couple. But they have to cast 456 people, which means that a lot of honestly pretty fucking insane people kind of get through. It's tough to cast a show. Even if you cast a show of 30 people on a reality show, there's a good chance a few of them are insane because they want to be in a reality show. So now it's 456. I know they're not able to screen these people as much as they'd like to, you know, and they try and, I guess at the beginning, pick out who might be good on camera. But the thing is, like, by the time it gets down to 30, that's still a lot of people, and they've already cut off, like, you know, 420 people. Or 426 people. So there's been so many people that you can get really late into the show. You can get deep into the show. Like as a contestant, you can be close to winning, and they really haven't interviewed you at all. I remember it got down to 63 people, and they had to do a game that was like, they all had to pair up, and then it was a one-on-one game. And before they played the game, I guess because it was in the real show, they had to ask each other, why do you want to be here? And there's this one guy named Tim that only gets like a total of, I want to say, 7 minutes of screen time in this whole show. And he's made it to like the last 63 people. So hundreds and hundreds of people have been kicked off. We haven't seen this guy at all. And it's him. He's one-on-one with this girl. And before they play this game of marbles, they have to ask each other, why do you want to win this game? And he starts off, and he's like, by the way, I'm not really spoiling anything, but he starts off, and he's like, well, first off, I can't retire. And also, I've got a lot of family with health issues, and I'd like to be able to help them. And if I have any more money, I'd like to donate to charities that would help, you know, people like those in my family who need help. And this guy's like 70 maybe. And then he asks this young woman he's with, she's probably 27. And he goes, why do you want to be here? And she says, well, I'm here for representation because, as you know, I'm deaf. And growing up, I never got to see a lot of people like me in media. And so I want to be an inspiration to young deaf children. And it's been great being here because I get to teach people sign language, and everybody's been very receptive. And now some of my closest friends on this show will say, you know, hello to me in sign language when I see them. And that makes me feel really good. And I thought that this guy's response, because he's, you know, kind of a boomer, and she's like just the epitome. He's just a person that I don't really believe these people exist. And it's not her saying that she wants representation, or that it's the method of like, I don't believe that this real like kind of Gen Z millennial person truly exists in the world, but they do. Where she wants more representation for deaf people, and her way of doing it is that she is the representation. She's the star, and she also gets $4.56 million. And she doesn't bring that up in her reasons for wanting to win. She doesn't bring that up literally at all. She's also listed as an artist in her job description when they interview her. So I'm pretty sure her parents are bankrolling this life, and it's fucking crazy. So I thought he was going to have a regular old man response of being like, all right, well, I can't fucking retire. I don't know if you know how that feels, but it's a lot worse than not getting to see a deaf fucking person in a show. He doesn't do that. Tim is a gift to the earth because he turns into like Piers Morgan pretty quickly. Where she's fucking annoying, and he could kind of brush that off, but he goes right at her, where she's talking about how she's deaf, and then he goes, well, you know I'm deaf. And she goes, yeah, I saw your hearing aids. And before she can even finish, she's like, why didn't you ever tell me? And she's like, what? And he's like, you've never done sign language with me. And she's like, well, we don't hang out that much. He's like, no, we have talked enough. And you are going around to everybody else teaching them sign language. If you'd come up to me and signed hello, I would have responded and we could have bonded over that, but you chose to not tell me. And then she starts pulling, like, because he's getting weirdly accusatory and kind of like, I guess insinuating that for some reason she would lie to him specifically about being deaf, which you don't need to know anything about the show. I'll just tell you that doesn't help your chances of, there's no way that as a strategy would help you. So I don't know what his basis for the accusation of lying is, but it's really great that is his hill. He's immediately trying to, like, he takes it to 100 immediately, which I think is what a lot of people do when they talk to young people like that, where you want to be like, but you're also going to be the star and you're going to get $4.56 million. So I feel like this representation thing is just kind of a bullshit thing you're bringing up. If you really want more representation in media, you have an interest in that, you should maybe write a TV show that is around deaf people, or, also there are deaf. She acted like there had never been, Moonlight, like, won a fucking Oscar. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why she acted like deaf media has never existed. But whatever. So he responds, quickly. And he's like, you've kept it from me. And she's like, oh my God, what? And then she's like, it's not my job, which is a big young person. It's not my job to do that. And he just keeps going, and it's so good because she's like, I feel really sorry for you, Tim. And he goes, you tricked me. Like, he reminds me a lot of a Thomas Lennon character. If you don't know my name, it's the sheriff from Reno 911, among so many other things. Hilarious, but it was like a character that he would do perfectly. Like, this Thomas Lennon could play this guy any fucking day of the week, and I mean, reality shows are fake, but this was the kind of argument where you're like, I don't even think you could tell an old man to do this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even think, if that wasn't his inclination, I don't think you could get him to do that. He wouldn't understand the context in which he's speaking. But this guy was just, old people, you don't have to give them any direction on reality shows. They do wild shit. And he's like, yeah, you tricked me. And it's this weird fight that, like, comes out of nowhere for no reason. And she's like, I feel sorry for you. And he's like, I feel sorry for you because you're about to go home soon. And then they play the game, which is just trying to toss marbles into a bucket. And he loses pretty easily, which is embarrassing. Also, I want to say, if any of you are listening to this thinking, you said both of these people are deaf, are they signing all? No, they're not. I want to make that very clear. I know that the word deaf does not mean you hear zero things, but I do want to say this girl is walking around having pretty regular speaking conversations with a lot of people. She's sitting down and speaking with her mouth, which she doesn't sound like what you assume a deaf person sounds like. She just sounds like a normal person. And she'll sign while talking, but, like, she doesn't need to. You understand every word she's saying, and then people talk to her, and they're like, and she's responding fully. And then in the interview, she's like, it's really hard to meet new people and stuff because I have to try really hard. It's hard to hear them, so I have to sometimes read lips. And it's like, I don't know. I just want to say she's not deaf in the probably wrong, but honestly, come on, description of what deaf actually is. She's not what you think deaf is. She's extremely hard of hearing, and she uses hearing aids. I don't know how many times they cut out her going, what, in the show, but there's not a single one of those. So the whole, like, I'm deaf thing is a little, is what it is. You know how autism used to mean something? Kind of like that. And then this old guy is just sort of jumping on that train too, being like, well, I'm also deaf. But they're having this whole they're just talking to each other. There's not a bit of sign language going on at all. So it's kind of fucking annoying to me that she's like, I'm going to be the representation for deaf people. Because it's like, well, you're not 100% showing what it means. Like, if there was a guy in there that was truly deaf, like from birth, couldn't hear a fucking word, doesn't know what words sound like, and communicates pretty much 100% through sign language, that guy would be fucked. There's 456 people. I guarantee you 0 of them spoke sign language. It's a very unknown, not a lot of people know sign language. And also it's an international group, and sign language varies across countries and even regions and even races. So, like, if you were truly deaf in that situation, I don't think they'd let you on the show. Like, I think the show would just be like, honestly, dude, it's not going to work. Like, it's so much work to have just you on the show. But they let her on the show because she's, like, technically deaf. But she can fucking have a face-to-face conversation with only words, verbal words, and she's fine. So, fuck her, honestly. She sucks, and she wins the game, which stinks, because it's that kind of thing where you're like, I don't know how set up it is, but if it is, maybe the producers were like, well, this guy's pretty hateable, and she's supposed to be likable, so I guess she would win this game. But honestly, I feel like even the most Gen Z, whatever you want to, woke, whatever kind of person you want to call it, watching the show, if that guy won, they'd still be like, nice, that guy's a dick, because there's so many people left. You kind of know these two people, they're not going to win the game. They don't have it in them. But she gets to fucking, keep doing her thing and keep talking about herself a bunch. She also, like, promises to form an alliance with women and, like, pretty soon backstabs that, which is, whatever. But, yeah, so there's, like, moments like that, and there's just, there's every kind of person you want on the show, and they know who to show you. There's, like, a pretty immediate villain who actually doesn't last very long into the show, which is kind of the reason I feel like it's not all that rigged, Because, like, it comes down to, like, 2 gay guys and an older Vietnamese woman, and they're 2 white gay guys, and I feel like as producers, if they had any say over that, they'd be like, well, we can't have 2 white gay guys win. But they did win. There's one guy, he's a dumbass. He's very memorable from the show. They gave this guy a lot of airtime. He's pretty, like, standard douchebag reality show guy, but he is a senior at Clemson, and he's a football player, which, if you don't know, Clemson it's a D1 football team. I don't think they're very good, but they're not, I don't know, they're not terrible. They're a team, and he was in his 4th year, which means he's not the greatest football. He probably wasn't going to go to the NFL. They probably would have drafted him earlier. But he was in his last semester of his senior year, and he dropped out to join the show, which is like, dude, you probably got a scholarship. Like, you probably got free college. Don't leave. Also, they'll do the show again. After you finish the show, they're like, do you want to sign up for the show? They ask you at the very last thing, it's like, here's a website you can go to if you want to sign up for the show. Like, this kid could have just waited for the 2nd season. But he's funny because, I'm 24. He's probably a similar age. And, a lot of my confidence in my beliefs are pretty tapered down by the fact that I do stand up with 30-year-olds and older, and they have lived the same life that I'm going to live. Not necessarily, but you know what I mean. You're around older people, so if you act very young, you get called on being very young and dumb pretty quickly. So I keep a lot of my young confident beliefs kind of close to my chest because I know I'll be embarrassed if I express them. And then usually when I think about them more, I go, yeah, that's stupid, and I don't say those things out loud. This guy doesn't have that. He's just on a football team, so he's with the tough guys, and he's with other tough guys his age. So nobody's telling this guy, like, hey, you sound like a dumb idiot douchebag that doesn't know anything. You should shut up. Nobody's telling this guy that. So he's coming on the show hot. And in his interview, he has one of my favorite just things I've ever heard said is he said, I'm a competitor. I've always competed. You got to learn how to compete. And then he says, even Jesus had to compete, which, I notice guys that are really secure in their belief of God, like Christians, have their own kind of nonsensical belief that just sort of fits whatever narrative they already wanted to make up. Like they believe what they want to believe. They're like really competitive. They're really selfish. They lack emotion or empathy. But they sort of find a way to say that Jesus also says that. I just like reading the Bible and seeing everything Jesus is doing and the conflict that he's facing and being like, so this is competition. And it's like, no, it's not competition. He walked around saying he was the Son of God and it pissed people off, so they killed him. That's not a competition. That was Jesus being kind of a dickhead and a lot of guys being like, should we fucking kill this guy? Because he's so annoying. There wasn't really a competition. He only had 12 friends. He was going up against the Roman army. It wasn't a competition. But I like that that's what he got from that, But he was also like, he's a bad Christian because, I think he talked about being raised with a single mom. So he has sort of like I gotta make my own way mentality. But all of that sort of gets transferred into excuses of selfishness and also kind of being a bad Christian, because he says one thing where he's like, I just learned that sympathy is a waste of time, which is a very young person thing to say, to look at a sort of inevitable human emotion. Like, even if you're fucked up, like the only people that really truly don't have an ounce of sympathy are, I guess, like sociopaths. Not just sociopaths, like sociopaths that enable their own behavior. Those are people without sympathy. Everybody else feels sympathy whether you want to or not. Like everybody else, if you walk by a little baby kitten that's like drowning in a puddle of a gutter, seeing it struggle, you would probably pick the kitten up. And technically that would be a waste of your time. You would be later to wherever you're going, and it wouldn't actually benefit you directly career-wise. But it would benefit you because you did a nice thing to make you feel better. But I'm just saying it's just a very young thing to be like, that emotion that's kind of built into everybody, whether you want to feel it or not, that's a waste of time. Because it's also like sympathy for anybody and for good people is a burden. And it's a good burden. I think, I'm upset sometimes that it seems like other people don't feel the same burden of consideration and sympathy and empathy. And I'm not saying that I'm a good person. I do a lot of things that are selfish and unsympathetic sometimes. And I really hate myself for that. I really hate that I don't feel like I'm a giving enough person. I feel like I take a lot from the people around me in terms of emotional labor, and I need to do that less. And, when anybody comes to me and they say, I've had a bad day, can I talk to you? My answer is always yes, because I just want to be an open space for people that they can feel safe around me and hopefully safer within themselves, and they can build themselves up. And maybe my being a part of that would help build myself up too. I think it's a completely non-selfish yet mutual exchange that is being considerate to other people. But this guy just, I think he feels that burden, and then he says, oh, that's a waste of time. But like a good person walks around the world, sees the kitten drowning and goes, oh, fuck, God damn it, this stupid kitten. Okay. And then he picks it up, and then you see him 2 days later. You're like, what's up? He's like, well, I don't know. I was going to work, and I found this fucking kitten that's drowning, and I couldn't find its mom, and it was like dying. So I took it to the vet, and I got it all this shit. And so now I got to feed it out of a fucking baby bottle. And like, you can be annoyed by that, but also what you're engaging in is like a completely beautiful human moment, and like helping that little cat. Eventually you'll love that cat, and all the struggle of it will be part of that love. But this kid is just like, fuck that, I gotta go to practice. And it's not, he doesn't know that that's not what he actually believes. He doesn't know that. He is just a 24-year-old rude dickhead. And this belief that sympathy is a waste of time is not an actual belief of his. It's like a reaction to the way he acts. It's a reaction of justification of his own behavior, where he walks around and for whatever reason, he is selfish and he doesn't like helping out other people with their emotions. And instead of trying to change that, what he has done is say, well, actually, it's not that I'm selfish or that it's a flaw in me. It's actually just a belief system. And the belief system relates to sort of this A-type personality that I have as a D1 football player. And that's why I'm successful. Everybody else is wasting their time with sympathy. But the reason I'm successful is because of this. And he's not successful. He's just a kid, you know? He's just a fucking kid and he's in college and, you know, everything's fine, but he kind of believes that he's like already really successful, which is, you know, a lot of like buff young guys do that a lot. If you're like 24 and you're buff, in your head, you look at like a 50-year-old broke guy and you're like, well, that'll never be me because I'm buff, you know? And it's good to have confidence in yourself, but that's not confidence. That's like just sort of... That's not really looking at the big picture. That's not looking at the fact that, like, well, I have a scholarship to go to this college. I couldn't pay for it myself. My parents couldn't pay for it. I am getting a degree in something I don't really care about because I thought I was going to go to the NFL, and now I'm in my 4th year. I'm probably not going to go to the NFL, so I have this communications degree, and I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but it might be my lifeline to make any amount of fucking money. Maybe I'll get into coaching. He doesn't look at all that. He just goes, I'm on the football team right now, and I'm cool, so I'm a winner. And, you know, the funny part is that, so this guy's like, sympathy is a waste of time. And the way he enacts that belief, the fact that he does it all is crazy. But there's a lot of people that cry in this show. Way more than in the show where people are actually going to die, which is scripted. But still, people don't cry as much in that show as the real reality show where nobody's dying. They're just trying to get money. People are crying all the time. Like sometimes, like one time they had to make a line. They had to make 4 separate lines, and they always get nervous about who's in their line, so it becomes very cagey and tense, and just in the midst of everybody fighting over lines, like a woman just started crying, which was a little much, but also anytime anybody cries in the show, it's a little much. So she's crying, and then the D1 football player who believes that sympathy is a waste of time, he's like 15 feet away from her. He's like 2 lines over. He sees that, and then out loud to her, but to everybody, he goes, would you stop with the emotions? It's such a waste of time. You look weak. Can we stop? And it's like, he doesn't realize that what he's seeing is a person crying. What he then most likely feels, if he's not a sociopath, is a person's crying. Somebody needs to stop them from crying and make them feel better, because it's not good when people cry. And it makes us all a little sad when anyone cries for any reason, even if they're kind of a dickhead. He feels that. He feels that burden of sympathy. But all he feels is the burden and then just goes, stop, you're doing this to me. And it's like, oh yeah, you're just a completely selfish dickhead who's just making up all these like Andrew Tate beliefs to justify being a dickhead. Like, this guy doesn't have any beliefs that he, like, you know, he never, like reads some, like, book about a way of life and then is like, oh, that's good, and then formulates his own ideas and then changes his life after that. No, he just lives the way he lives. He creates his own belief to justify that way of living, and then he probably finds different books or YouTube videos to confirm his bias, you know, and that's just in his own personality. That's not, like, a politic thing, but... So that guy's the best. And it's funny because it's like there's people his age in like college or younger. I think they have to be at least 18. But there's people his age. And then there's like 80-year-old people. So he's like presenting this whole air And everybody around him, like, he thinks he's like, yeah, everybody can see that I'm fucking strong and I'm awesome. I'm a real competitor. You know, everybody knows that. Everybody respects football players because that's what the whole world is. Like, he really hasn't left college. Like, he really thinks that anybody who hears that a guy plays for a college football team, they'll be like, well, he's the man, obviously. So, you know, mark that down. But that's not the reaction he gets. Everybody in the entire warehouse on the first day is like, okay, so fuck that guy. If we have a chance to vote him out or whatever, we will definitely do that. And, you know, I mean, he just acts like a dickhead immediately, which is like, if he just smiled more and was nice, it wouldn't be a problem. But he's like, he immediately gets a group of other guys and then is like, all right, let's do push-ups. You think you can do more push-ups than me? And then, you know, it's bad because this is a game of not, you know, it's not really a lot of physicality involved in the game. It's more strategy and kind of alliance building and things like that. And he's just starting off immediately by being like, well, I'm a dickhead, and if you're against me in a physical challenge, you'll lose. So he's like fucking himself over for the entire show, but he doesn't know that. And it's kind of a small microcosm for what his entire life is going to be of like, well, you know, I'm just presenting that I'm fucking awesome and it'll work out for me. And then the rest of the world is like, no, actually, we don't fuck with you. And we all know that you're pretty stupid. So nobody likes you. You're not going to be able to build a real alliance and you'll probably get voted out easily. He gets out in a challenge, but, you know. But, yeah, I mean, it's like reality shows are like really like stupid. But it's interesting because they are, I think, the saddest kind of entertainment that exists. Because, like, they do this thing, and this is a spoiler. There's been other spoilers. This is another. They do this thing where they get a treat, and they're like, you guys get to have a picnic. So pick whoever you want. You can only pick one person, and you two will have a picnic together. We'll give all of you a blanket, and you'll sit down and have a picnic. So every group of two gets their own blanket. They get a basket, and they've been eating shitty food, so they give them nice food, and they're all excited, and they're eating. And then if you look at the bottom of the picnic basket, there's a bag of marbles, which since they've watched the show, they all know means, oh, I have to play marbles against this person I'm having the picnic with, and only one of us is going to win. So what the show did was they said, hey, pick your best friend in here. And then they fucked him over by saying, okay, now you guys have to go head-to-head in a game, and one of you is going to be eliminated from the game. And this is a really interesting part in the show because they're in like a large, like there's still like close to 100 of them in the game. So they're in this like large warehouse room where they all sleep and they're all sitting on the floor. And then they break this news that they're going to have to play this game against each other. And like pretty much every single group, like all 100 people begin to weep at the same moment. And, you know, a lot of reality shows are like trying to find a moment of weakness in somebody and then exploit it with a camera in their face. And this is like the most depraved example of that because they got all these people into one room. They all made them feel the same feeling at the same time. And then the shots they get after are like like, you know, those Vietnam War movies where the camera just pans over like a million dead bodies. It just becomes like the dying and dead bodies. It just becomes like that where there's just like shot. It's like quick cuts of different people all just hugging and crying and being like, this is a fucking game. And then like you're watching it just being like, wow, this is like a social experiment kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of like a large psychological test that's all happening at once. And it's not to get any result or to really analyze what's happening. It's to just tape it and show it to people and be like, isn't this fucked up and sad? And you're like, yes, it's very fucked up and sad. What the fuck is this show, you know? Because, I don't know, I feel like the last time I watched reality TV, it was like, I watched Survivor with my family, which is still on, but I don't know how it's changed. I only watched the old one. And in 2005... you know, I think there was less inflation. There was a little more hope with the college degree. The point is, everybody on the show was like, oh, I'd love to win $1 million. But nobody's like, if I win this $1 million, I won't have to lie to my kids about our money anymore. And the world's just gotten so much sadder in the last 20 years. And so reality shows now, especially when you can win $4.56 million, which, you know, if you win that and come out to like, you know, maybe 2 or so, which even with how expensive the world is now, $2 million can really change your life, especially if you invest it well, you know, you can turn that into 10. So these people like really need this to an extent that's like fucked up. You know what I mean? It's like like I was talking about how everybody's crying in the show and how it's kind of funny, but it's also like, oh yeah, they're crying because this is their one shot to get out of poverty. Like a lot of people in the show are in very low class or maybe even, you know, kind of a poverty kind of like situation. And so this is their one shot. It's either win this game or the rest of their life is going to be what it's been unless they figure something else out, you know? And it's crazy. I mean, that has to be the worst feeling in the world, especially for like the guy, you know, like the person that was like the runner-up in the show, because it's like for that long they'd been like, okay, if I win this, I'll have a different life, you know? And then you lose, and then you leave the show and you go, oh, so everything's the same. And all the dreams I've been having of the last few weeks of what I would do with the money don't matter anymore because I'm not going to win the money. And whatever my life is now is just what my life is going to be. And I just have to look down the barrel of that. And, you know, it's like I wake up every day and look down the barrel of my life and it scares the fuck out of me. And it's got to be even worse when you had a chance to change everything and by whatever twisted fate, it didn't. And then you just have to go back and go, oh, yeah, so this is it. You know, this is all it's going to be, I guess. You know, like that's, and it's not necessarily true that maybe a lot of those people go on from that show and make $1 million and get to be a little comfortable in their lives. I don't know. But a lot of them won't. Most of them won't, you know? And it's a dirty game. But yeah, I mean, yeah, my favorite part is just that you don't see a lot of people. Like, everybody gets pretty quick screen time, you know? It's not really like, this has been your favorite person for the last few weeks, watching them. And it's like, even like the person who wins, like, they only come in to play, like, the last 3 episodes. Before that, you don't really hear from them, you know? There was one funny part. There was a young girl and a young guy. They're both probably around my age, like 24, and they're sitting on a bed together, and it goes to their conversation, and she's like, so what's like your smoothest pickup line if you see a cute girl in a bar? And then he answers and they laugh, and it's very flirty. You know, they're asking safe but flirty questions. It's the first romance I've seen in the whole show. And I'm like, huh. And then and we haven't heard from this girl. She hasn't really been interviewed yet. So then it goes to her interview, and she's like, yeah, you know, I'm really just trying to connect with people and find out good things about other people, and I just want to see if they can see the same in me. And I took that interview, and I took what I just saw, and I was like, is this girl here to, like, fuck people? Does she think it's like a reality show, like Big Brother, where everybody's, like, fucking? Like, doing, like, on-camera fucking? Which is hilarious because remember, the show starts off with 456 people. So she showed up on the first day and was probably like, this is gonna be crazy. You know what I mean? Just looking around, there's like old men there. She's like, fuck, this is freaky shit. Okay. Just imagining the first night, 456 people sleep. Well, half of them, like a huge amount of them, get eliminated in the first game. So I'd say it probably goes down to like 300. But it's like 300 people sleeping in a communal room. And I was just imagining when the lights go out, she assumes they got night vision cameras to watch people fucking. So she's like, okay, here's where the real show starts. And she just goes to a guy's bunk bed, and there's like 300 people in there. So he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And he's like, what the fuck? And she's like, I'm cold. And he's like, what? And she like puts her ass on his dick, and he's like, are you trying to get me hard right now? And there's like the bunk beds are so close, so there's like literally 15 people around, and they're all just like, what the fuck? And that didn't happen, but that should have happened. I would have liked a little more of that in the show, because the show is based off the scripted show, and the scripted show is very serious, you know what I mean? It's like guards with no faces, and it's kind of like you're almost like in prison, and the way to get out is to win these games. So everybody in the show is like pretty respectful of the whole situation. But I would have liked somebody to get kicked off, not by losing, but just by like trying to fuck somebody or like smoking a cigarette or something, But I don't know. It's a good show, and I am realizing now that as the world gets more expensive and our leaders continue to dupe us and just use us, and as all of our personal information is mined away for somebody else to make more money, and the chances of anybody really excelling themselves out of a bad situation become less and less every day in this country, that reality TV is probably the best it's ever going to get. There's considered like a golden age of reality TV. I don't think that's really happened yet. I think the worse the world gets, the closer we get to the real Squid Games. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people's reasons for going on a reality show in like the 90s or early 2000s are just like, because I don't give a fuck. Like, they're just very vague and they're personality based. You know what I mean? They're just like, Hawkeye like me usually wins everything. So when I got this chance and they said I could win it, I was like, probably will. So fuck it, I'll join. And you still get a little bit of that nowadays, but now it's mixed in with the current culture. So the whole show is just people just being like, my brother's retarded. So many people, like every person they interview is just like, my brother's retarded. I need money for that. Also, my job sucks. And then, then there's like a guy that brings his fucking mom, which is gay. And she's there and she's like, I'm just trying to, find the feeling that I felt like I haven't felt in a while of really trying something new. And it's like, fuck you. There are people here that are like trying to pay for their sister who's never taken a step in her life, and you want to go for a fucking hike. Literally take a hike. Not even in the sense of the word. Take a hike. Go out and hike. Because what the fuck is this? Why would you... What? So you can feel something. You win $4.56 million. If you win this, you're taking that money away from somebody who needs that money, So it's kind of easy to hate people, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I think the next reality TV show should be called Crabs in a Bucket, where they get a bunch of people and they screen them really hard, and they find, a group of people who have never made more than like $20,000 in a year. So they got to go, they go across the world. And it's similar to Squid Games. It is in a big warehouse and they can't leave. But inside the big warehouse, instead of a bunch of bunk beds, is a large bucket, a very large bucket, like as big as a small theater, It's like huge. So they put all of these, and I'm talking hundreds, they put hundreds of these people who are, deep below the poverty line. And they put them in the bucket. And if they get out of the bucket, they win $10 million. And it's like a 30-day show, and there's no ropes, and there's no nothing, and you can't climb it yourself. So there's like a thing where it's like, they realize, well, we got to make a ladder, but then it's like, well, whoever gets up that ladder first wins. So a bunch of us would just be helping whoever gets up the ladder. So whoever gets up the ladder is going to have to get that money and split it with everybody else in the bucket, and if you want to get out of the bucket without climbing out of it, you have to shoot yourself. And people do that. You'll be surprised when you watch my new reality show, Crabs in a Bucket. A lot of people, for some reason, just opt to just kill themselves. So within 10 days, half the contestants are splayed out over the floor. There's a lot of blood. There's like an inch of blood in the bottom of but you can't step without getting your shoes soaked in blood. And it just comes down to these people. And that's when they really start to actually work together and make decisions. Because they go, okay, so a lot of us are dead now. which means that if we split this money, we'll make about double what we would have if we did it all together, and we still have enough people to make a chain. So then they go, well, how many people do we need to make the chain? And they realize it's like 15. And they go, okay, well, there's like 50 people here. And then it just becomes a fight to the death with about enough people to make the ladder left standing. And those people go up, and they let one guy go up because they trust that he'll split the money, and he wins, and he doesn't split the money. And that's crabs in a bucket. And you know what's fun? Is that the second season, same bucket, no cleanup. So it starts off, and the bodies are still there. And it's, it's like it's infectious, and it's dangerous, and it's like walking down a street in England in the 1500s. It's really fucked up and gross. But I think, within a matter of, we'll see how the next election goes. I think just, not very long from now, that could be the hottest show. But, we'll see. So, I don't know. I also could see, addiction getting involved. They honestly should do a reality show that's 100 alcoholics and drug addicts. I guess they should all be on the same. They should all have the same addiction. That's kind of only fair. Okay, so you get 45 heroin addicts, and they're all the same level of heroin addict. They're deeply addicted to heroin, and what it is they stay in the same set of Squid Games. And they do play the same games, but it doesn't matter if you win the games. It has nothing to do with the outcome of this particular competition. So you still have to do red light, green light and stuff, but you're just withdrawing from fentanyl and heroin. So there's 45 people doing that. And the games don't matter, once again. It's just to get them moving. The way you win the game is by staying sober. And there is no medical treatment for the withdrawals. So the first 10 days of the competition are crazy. Some people's livers are shutting down. They got to quit the show. People are fighting with each other. They're all being somebody has heroin here. Who has heroin? You know what I mean? It's a mess. Some people are just getting stabbed to death just because of the frustration and anger in the room. It's a fucked up show. But then at the end, one guy goes 45 days, and then he gets $100 million. And then the real show starts because it turns from a reality competition show to then kind of a docu-series about the winner. And he dies within a year. Pretty easily he died. He doesn't take it as I'm sober now and I have money. I can change my whole life. He takes it as I have so much money for heroin. And he goes right back to it. And I think I might also call that one Crabs in a Bucket. It might just be the same name as the other show. So, I'm talking to, multiple production companies and rehab facilities and trying to get people on board. Everybody I've talked to says that it is morally repugnant. That's a word they're throwing around a lot about the idea for the show, but I'm not gonna let the haters win. I think the show needs to get made. I think it's what people need to see, and I think it's what people want. So watch out for that. Watch out for the new Crabs in a Bucket. That's going to be a really exciting show. Yeah, I don't know. The sadder the world gets, the better that fucking reality TV is going to get. And yeah, that's tough. I don't know. It was really tough because there was a girl on the show. She was 23, and she was fine. She's fine. She's 23. She's fine, and she's on the show. And they're very open in their interviews, more than I've seen anybody else in a reality TV show ever. And she goes on, and she's like, of course I could use the money. I'm young. I don't have any money, but also I feel like I haven't done anything in my entire life. I just work at a hotel, and I don't like it, and I don't like myself. I have a really hard time liking myself. I don't like anything about myself. And she's telling all of this to the world. And I'm watching it as a 24-year-old who doesn't like himself. And I'm just like, oh, girl, like, of course you feel that way. You're 23. That's okay. Don't tell everybody that. Because in 7 years, you're going to be 30 and you're still not going to like yourself. But you're not really going to think that matters anymore. Eventually, you'll reach an age where even if you don't fix your problems, you'll look at them and just go, I have to go to work, and I don't care that I don't like myself, because even if I liked myself, my life still sucks a lot, so fuck it, And she's just telling this to the world, and, I come here on my podcast and talk about how I don't like myself, but also nobody listens, so that's different, But it's tough. It is tough to like yourself. I couldn't sleep last night because I haven't drank for 3 days, and I've noticed this really cool thing happens when I don't drink, which is where I can't sleep until about 5 a.m. I got into bed at 12:30, midnight and a half, which is very early for me in my job. And I was like, maybe I can just go to sleep and I could wake up at 10 and I'll have gotten fucking like 9 hours of sleep. Like how awesome would that be? And I just couldn't do it. I eventually had to get up. I fucking made dinner at like 2 a.m. and ate 2 bites of it and then watched a show and got high and then laid in bed for another 2 hours until I could go to sleep. And it's just, I think that's the one thing that stops a lot of people. I mean, definitely me from actually staying sober is that, and not that I'm not sober. I smoke weed and I use a lot of escapes, but just alcohol is one that's pretty dominant in the escapism factor, and so if I take that out, I feel the difference. I'll say that. I'm not trying to steal valor from real sober people, but yeah, when I take away that weighted blanket of drunk sleep, you just have to feel all of your feelings, and then you get high, and you still feel those feelings. You're just fucking high, and everything's worse. But it's fucking tough. I can't sleep, and it's like I don't know how to walk around without fucking hating myself, because I'm sure if I got more time, if I like got a year in no drinking, I'd be able to have a little confidence in myself and say, hey, that was tough, but I did it, and I proved that to myself, and even if I don't like myself, that's a good thing. And I don't think that's going to happen for me, and I think that's fine. I don't think it's the point of getting sober. But it is tough, because it's like you want to believe that if you stop doing something that's bad for you, you'll feel better about yourself because you'll be like, well, I'm not doing that thing that's bad for me anymore, so I should feel good and I should feel like I have power over myself. But you don't feel that way at all. You just have all these feelings of self-hate and self-loathing that you've been covering with the alcohol that now rear their ugly heads nightly upon you. And you can't feel all those feelings and go, well, I'm not drinking, so that's good. That doesn't fix that. It doesn't fix it. And, it's just been a lot of realizing that I'm not going to be happy or comfortable ever in my life. But what I can do is hopefully build up a stand-up career and have a life that has more enjoyable moments than a life of working a shitty job and still wasting my life away at open mics, But even if the success comes, I'm not going to be happy. And, adults are listening to this being like, yeah, that's life, nobody's happy. And also a lot of people, I'm sure, are thinking the same thought I'm having, which is, well, of course, happiness is not a constant state. It's something you feel sometimes. And if you live a good life, that feeling is probably a little more accessible to you. And really more than that, it's not the feeling of happiness. It's that if you live a good life, you'll have less despair and depression thoughts of like, well, everything's just fucking terrible. Like that will lessen a little bit. But I don't know. I also don't think it will. I'm kind of just looking at my life and realizing like, no, I think I'm just going to feel awful about myself and this world until the day I die. But if I build up a stand-up career and I'm able to do stand-up to like an audience that likes me, then those will be nice moments, and that's kind of all I can hope for. And that just sucks and is such a good reason to drink because it's like, well, there's the cheat code for happiness if you want it, but you just have to, just be some kind of adult and just be like, no, this is just what it is. And, I saw a good tweet from a friend of mine, Ben Avery. Some of you might know him. He tweeted that because he's sober and he's open about it online. He tweeted that a lot of people message him and they say, "Oh, I've been not drinking or not smoking, or I've been quitting this addiction and it still sucks. What am I doing wrong?" And he was like, "You're not doing anything wrong. That's what it is." And I like that. Because that's kind of what a lot of, sober people and sober organizations will say, but they don't really say it. What they say is like the feeling of sobriety is a feeling of satisfaction and self-confidence that will be good for you in your life. But they're not honest about the fact that it's not enjoyable. It's not fun. And, it is, when you really think about it, it is stupid to think that like, well, if I'm sober, I'll have fun. And it's like, no, you won't, dude. You're having fun right now, and that's the problem. Fun is your problem. Once you get the fun out, then you'll get stuff done. And then when you do have fun, it'll mean more, because you've gotten some stuff done and you kind of maybe in whatever justification, you can say you kind of deserve to have that kind of fun, But yeah, that's it. This is it. And, hopefully, my life will only be successful if I can finally get to a point where I just accept that, that suffering is the mode of being, that's how it is, that, the Buddhist, you guys are right, because even those guys, everybody's like, they're enlightened and they're content. And it's like, no, those are guys that are the best at being like, no, dude, shit sucks all the time. The only reason people think we're super happy and enlightened is because we accept that shit sucks all the time forever until the end. So if we seem unbothered, what it is like, you can't drown when when your lungs are already full of water. You know what I mean? You're like, it just sucks already, dude. Like, I don't care. Like, some bad shit comes up for like a devout Buddhist and he's like, yeah, I'm cool. And everybody's like, how are you so chill? And he's like, I'm not chill. This shit just sucks already. And I knew it would suck. So I'm not surprised. Like, you're not upset. You're surprised by the suffering. If you weren't surprised by it, then you just go, yeah, that's what the fuck this life is. And then, whatever. I don't know. But, it's also just realizing it's like you don't always deserve to be as happy as you think you do. Like, I woke up today, I haven't gone outside. It's dark now. I didn't see the sun, Sunlight came into my room, I took a shower, I washed the dishes, I set up the podcast, but I didn't see the sun. And so I can't expect to be chipper today. You know what I mean? I can't be like, why am I not feeling good? It's like, well, because you lived a bad life and that's this is what it is. You get what you get. There's a joke I have now about how I can't go to the doctor because I don't eat or sleep or exercise well in any of those forums. And so I don't feel good at all ever. So like sometimes I'll get worried and be like, what do I have, AIDS? And then I get an AIDS test and then I don't have AIDS. And I'm like, well, why the fuck do I feel like I have AIDS then? It's like, because that's how you live your life, because you get what you get. Because you are living the life you deserve to live, because it is the life you've lived. The life you live is the sum of all the actions that you've taken part in, and the actions you take part in are drinking and eating shitty foods and not sleeping well. So yeah, you wake up every day and you feel bad physically, and that makes you feel bad mentally, and now you think you suck, and then you call that depression, and for some reason you go on pills to stop it, when it's like, no, you have created this mess. And I probably have some sort of innate chemical imbalance or something. I don't know. But I can tell you that the way I live my life, if I lived it better, I could finally figure out if I am kind of naturally depressed. I don't know, But yeah, I mean, shit just sucks all the time until you die. And that's, fine. Because shit not being great isn't that bad either. It's not Disneyland. And now I sound like a 24-year-old who is giving very absolute opinions on life, and people are probably telling me to shut up and I'm being a little much. But I also think that a lot of people listening to this, it's like, well, maybe he's a little much with saying shit sucks all the time, but he's not like wrong. He's not like completely off the ball. But anyway, sorry I yawned. I'm not editing it out. Shit sucks all the time. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.